Who exactly are you? Why harm the Chen family? I demanded. He must have a deep-seated hatred. The butler closed his eyes, full of hatred, desperate to kill and tear apart all the Chen family. He unclenched his fists and finally revealed the truth. He was also bloodline of the Chen's old master Chen's half-brother. This is paragraph 28 of 144. Please process the following content logically. Maintain the original paragraph structure, line breaks, and overall layout. Return only the processed result. Decades ago, the housekeeper's mother worked as a maid for the Chen family. The elder Chen's father, seeing her beauty, forcibly violated her. The Chen family was powerful and influential. The maid had no choice but to endure the humiliation in silence. The elder Chen's father grew increasingly vicious, violating her repeatedly. The housekeeper's mother became pregnant by him. No matter the blood ties, a maid would always be a maid, never able to rise above her status. When the Chen family's matriarch found out, she was furious but dared not blame her husband. Instead, she vented her anger on the housekeeper's mother. She ordered the maid locked in a dark room and brought in ugly beggars to take turns abusing her. It was utterly brutal. They broke her legs and slashed her face, all to ensure no one would ever want her afterward. Fortunately, the housekeeper's mother survived, and the child was unharmed. She once considered suicide but chose to live for the baby and to seek revenge. When the housekeeper grew up, his mother told him everything but then died of illness. On her deathbed, she urged him to make the Chen family pay. The housekeeper's hatred ran even deeper than his mother's because he had no father. Raised among garbage heaps, bullied by all, his mother's lifelong suffering was all the Chen family's fault. He mastered dark arts solely for revenge, determined to make the Chen family pay tenfold for their pain. He infiltrated the Chen household as a housekeeper, keeping an eye on the matriarch, while plotting vengeance, making her bear a snake fetus, forcing her to taste his mother's past torment. All of this was her own doing. Today, he intended to make her life a living hell. But after encountering me, things changed. Otherwise, the matriarch would have suffered even worse. I broke the snake curse and blocked the housekeeper's spells. How is it? Doesn't the Chen family deserve to die? That wretched old lady deserves it more. I just want revenge, haha. The housekeeper laughed maniacally, his face twisted, consumed by hatred like a demon. Using dark magic to harm others is a grave taboo. Overwhelmed by resentment, he had lost all humanity. Though the housekeeper deserved punishment and the Chen family was monstrous, revenge through evil magic only worsens things. Even Qianling looked grim, as her grandmother's atrocities were truly detestable, and her grandfather was the chief culprit. Should the housekeeper take revenge? Absolutely. Karma demands repayment, debts must be settled. After speaking, the housekeeper revealed a sinister grin, fixed his gaze on the elder Chen lying on the ground, and suddenly pulled out a small knife, preparing to do something shocking. The butler pulled out a knife and, shockingly, cut off his own head, then held it in his hands. The scene was eerie and terrifying, but what was even more unbelievable was that his severed head could still speak. To think someone could cut off their own head and still talk, it was downright supernatural. The throat was severed, how could the head possibly make a sound? This was simply a fairy tale come to life. Qianling was so frightened she nearly passed out, quickly burying her face in my arms. At that moment, the butler's head spoke again, his tone sinister. I cursed the Chen family to die out, no descendants, no heirs, ha ha ha. After he finished, his eyes shut tight, but a twisted smile lingered on his lips. The whole scene was deeply unsettling. Meanwhile, his body stayed upright, like a lifeless statue. The butler knew he couldn't escape punishment, so he chose to end his own life. Yet even in death, he cast a curse, an ancient, vicious spell. It said those who wield such magic pay a terrible price, and I never expected the butler to have this dark skill. Soon after the butler's death, an ambulance arrived. We hurriedly carried Master Chen out. He was bleeding heavily from the stab wound Qianling inflicted, but fortunately it missed any vital organs. Whether he could be saved was still uncertain. Just as we stepped outside, there was a loud thud. A shadow dropped from the roof of the villa, crashing onto the ambulance. To our horror, it was the old lady. She had jumped to her death. The ambulance's windshield shattered from the impact. The vehicle could still move, but she was already gone. Misfortune piled up. Qianling held the old lady, crying inconsolably. But strangely, the old lady's face showed a serene smile, free from pain. I glanced at her and immediately sensed something was wrong. She was possessed, not her own doing. Her brow was darkened, an ominous aura seeped from her body. It was definitely the butler's foul scheme. The butler hated the old lady the most, so her death was inevitable. She had been vicious in life, impossible that she'd jump on her own. It had to be the butler's curse that forced her to leap. Though the old lady died, Master Chen was saved and, after surgery, his condition stabilized. The butler hadn't counted on that. The Chen family's ordeal ended there. Within 2 days, I caught the culprit. Though one had died and another was injured, the outcome wasn't bad. Every cause has its effect. The Chen family's wrongdoings brought this upon them. If not for me, it would have been far worse. The butler was powerful, filled with wrath and cruel methods. Without me, he would have crushed the Chen family completely. Of course, without the coin Chen Ling gave me, I wouldn't have gotten involved. But since I took the money, no matter who it was, I had to see this through. Taking payment wasn't enough, I had to follow protocol even for shady business. That's the rule. Once Master Chen was mostly recovered, I went to collect the payment. Chen Ling offered nothing, but the million was mine. For a family as wealthy as the Chens, money was no object. But unexpectedly, Master Chen turned hostile that day. I had never met such a shameless man. Even lying in bed, seeing me come for payment, he rolled his eyes and sneered coldly, "What did you really do? My mother's dead, I nearly died too, and you want money? I thought you were a master, but you're no better than this. I don't need that million. Not a penny from me." He had called me a master and expert before, now he flipped instantly. He didn't realize that without me, he'd be dead already. The butler would have ruined the whole Chen family. Besides, the Chen family brought this on themselves. The old lady's death was karma, no one could save her. Don't treat me like a saint. You reap what you sow. A pregnant woman violated by an ugly, filthy beggar, do you call that human? She survived this long because of past life blessings. And you expect me to save her? Impossible. I said, "Master Chen, you're turning your back now, trying to dodge payment, right? The rest of the matter isn't settled yet, but I handled the snake fetus case. You owe me half, 500,000. Master Chen glared, furious, "My mother's dead. Taking care of the snake fetus doesn't help. You're useless, almost killed me too. If I'd known you were trash, I wouldn't have trusted you. You want money? I'm not short, but I won't pay you. If not for you, I wouldn't be lying here. Find someone else, I wouldn't be near death if it weren't for your failure." He shouted, blaming me for everything, even accusing me of harming him. I almost burst out laughing. The Chen family's mess isn't my fault. Me? Harm you? Has he lost his mind? If not for me, he'd be 6 feet under already. No other feng shui master could face the butler. I'm the only one strong enough to break through. He forgot that he once tried to kill his own mother, purely out of shame. If I hadn't intervened, the old lady would have been buried long ago. Who really cares about their mother enough to do that? Selfishness, plain and simple. He resents me for not saving him, but there was no one else who could have passed through the butler's power. The butler was too strong, other masters couldn't stand a chance. He acts like a pig, yet still belittles me, laughable. I snorted coldly, "Humph, fine. You won't pay?" Then I asked him slowly, word by word. "With copper coins, I help you, that's a favor, because those who pay with coins all have ties to my grandfather. But handling business requires payment, that's the rule. If you dare to stiff me, I absolutely won't let you off easy. The consequences would be severe. Let's not bring trouble on ourselves." "What, you still dare to threaten me? I just won't pay. You didn't do the job right and still want money? Get lost. Didn't you look into the Chen family's background?" Old Mr. Chen slammed down his cup in anger, it shattered with a bang, glass shards scattering at my feet. That was an obvious threat, but to me, it was an insult. Hearing the crash, a few big guys burst in, surrounding me tightly, their stance hostile. With my skills, beating them would be no problem. My martial arts aren't showy or flashy, they're lethal moves. But I disdain fighting them. A feng shui master resorting to violence is a failure. I have 100 ways to make that guy pay. I'm helping him because of the copper coins, but if he dares to stiff me, I won't show mercy. "Oomph, want to fight? Come on, practice with them," old Mr. Chen sneered, eyeing me coldly. These were Chen family's enforcers, all big and fierce. "I'll give you 3 days to transfer 10 million into my account, or else I'll make sure you can't move a muscle for the rest of your life," I said calmly, writing down the bank account number and knocking thrice on the table. 10 million? Are you crazy? We can't even come up with 1 million, and you want 10 times that? Old Mr. Chin glared at me like I'd lost my mind. "Without me, you'd be dead tonight. Is 10 million worth your life?" I knocked the table again. I didn't really want that much, but he was forcing my hand. Sometimes, you have to be ruthless with people like him. I said no more and turned to leave. The big guys tried to block me, but I scoffed, pushed them twice, and they tumbled backward. The others were stunned, my strength actually pushed them aside. They looked at me in disbelief as I walked out of the Chen residence and back to the old house. Master Ninetails Fox wasn't there. Her clothes lay on the sofa. She'd definitely gone to train. Demonic cultivation requires purity, no clothes allowed. But exactly where she'd gone, I didn't know. Not long after I sat down, someone knocked on the door. Through the peephole, I saw Linny. She was probably here to settle accounts. Linny looked furious. When I didn't open, she knocked harder, even pounding with fists and kicking the door, confident as ever. Su Yan, I know you're in there. Get your ass out here, she yelled, kicking harder and harder. I opened the door and glared at her fiercely. Spit it out. Keep kicking and I'll toss you out onto the street. Linny immediately shrank back but still snarked, What did you do to me? Why am I like this? Feigning surprise, I said, already giving up so young? No way. Cut the act. I'm warning you, fix me quick or forget about your money. I just found a sucker, counting on him to make cash. She was furious and desperate, feeling like she lost her chance. I almost laughed. This was the cost of stiffing debts, no payday, no help from other men. I wasn't about to pity her. Done talking? If so, scram. None of my business, I said impatiently, trying to shut the door. She refused to leave, yelling, Come on, fight me then. I slapped her once. She froze, speechless. Either she had no money or just refused to pay. Thick skin like that, no point wasting words on her. Just then, an old man stood outside the door, his gaze strange. Sir, who are you looking for? I asked. He leaned on a cane, face full of wrinkles. I'm looking for Bansien. Bansien was my grandfather's title. This old man must have known him. Sir, my grandfather has passed, I answered truthfully. The old man's eyes welled up. He gave a soft, choked "oh," then started to turn away, clearly deeply connected to my grandfather. After a moment, he turned back, wiping his eyes, and asked, What is your relationship with Bansien? I pushed Linny aside. She's unrelated. I'm his grandson, Su Yang. The old man smiled. No wonder you bear some resemblance. Then he handed me an ancient copper coin engraved with the character Su. This was for Bansien. Take it and bury it at his grave. I took the coin, puzzled. Wasn't this a free gift? I wasn't someone who took things lightly. Sir, my grandfather instructed me to handle a certain secret matter. Could it be that you, I hinted, hoping for more information. The old man's spirit lifted. To be honest, I came precisely for Bansien this time. Didn't expect our parting would be forever. I immediately invited him inside, wanting to hear clearly what was going on. After all, if my grandfather could handle it, I could help too. Linny was also interested and refused to leave, so I had no choice but to let her sit in and listen. If she acted up, I wouldn't be so polite. The old man claimed his name was Wu Shang, an antique dealer who had been close friends with my grandfather for many years. He said that antiques, especially very old ones, often carry supernatural phenomena. Items with bloodstains are particularly heavy with evil energy. When Wu Sheng was young, he bought a treasured sword rumored to have belonged to an ancient general who had killed countless enemies. On full moon nights, when drawn from its sheath, the sword allegedly emitted wailing and battle cries eerily unsettling. The sword radiated cold and murderous intent, giving people goosebumps. Even animals would cower in fear and freeze. But this was mild compared to some antiques that were downright deadly. When Wu Sheng was 20, he acquired a painting called The Immortal in the Painting. The fairy depicted was stunningly beautiful, so lifelike it seemed real. The painting was very old, the artist unknown, and worth a fortune. It was a gift from a friend, and he treasured it, hanging it by his bedside to glance at before sleep every night. But ever since then, he dreamed of the fairy nightly. At 20, in his prime, this was no ordinary occurrence. Gradually, his health declined, he grew weak and fragile, waking from these dreams feeling drained of all vitality each night. Fortunately, he met my grandfather. Seeing Wu Sheng's darkened complexion, sunken eyes, pale lips, and obvious kidney deficiency, my grandfather immediately asked what was wrong. Wu Sheng was embarrassed to tell the whole truth, but upon hearing it, my grandfather shouted, "This is bad. This isn't the immortal in the painting, it's a painting spirit coming for your soul. If I hadn't intervened in time, your spirit would have been sucked dry by now." Grandfather explained that in ancient times, some paintings were made using fox blood, depicting the deceased such as dead spouses or mourned loved ones. The figures in these paintings absorb a person's vital energy and are extremely sinister. The fairy in Wu Sheng's painting wasn't an immortal at all, but a spirit that demanded a life. Once the spirit latched onto someone, burning the painting wouldn't get rid of it. Instead, it would become a vengeful ghost that kills even faster. Wu Sheng's friend was probably cursed by the painting spirit. After consulting a spiritual expert, they gave the painting to Wu Shang, passing on the danger to him. Hearing this, Wu Shang broke out in a cold sweat and cursed that friend for being ungrateful. He thought of him as a friend, yet that friend tried to harm him. What deceitfulness in human hearts! Grandpa told Wu Shang not to panic. There was a way to handle it, but he mustn't do what that friend did by passing the painting on. That's just foolhardy and harmful to everyone involved. Using fox blood, my grandfather painted a figure of Pan'an on the other side of the painting. Pan'an was a handsome man from ancient times, and Grandpa's painting was vivid and lifelike, perfectly matched with the fairy. Grandpa said the spirit was lonely, which is why it lingered in the dreams. By painting Pan'an, the spirit had a companion to meet with, so Wu Shang was safe. However, the painting couldn't hang by the bedside, especially with antiques. Grandpa chose a spot with strong positive energy, facing east-southeast, and told Wu Shang to hang it there. This prevented the painting from generating yin energy and reduced its evil aura. Later, Grandpa taught Wu Shang many things about how antiques attract evil spirits. Wu Shang had to be very careful in his line of work, or he might lose his life to something powerful. Wu Shang was deeply grateful and became a close friend of my grandfather. Unexpectedly, Grandpa passed away before him, crossing from this world to the next. This was just a small story Grandpa liked to tell. Tales of his youth never ran dry, and I ended up learning quite a bit about antiques. Then Wu Shang explained why he came today. He recently acquired a pair of red embroidered shoes from the Republic of China era, finely crafted and beloved, so he kept them. At that, Wu Shang's expression changed, eyes filled with fear. I guessed right, the red embroidered shoes were notorious for attracting evil spirits, and this pair was definitely problematic. That's why he came to see me. Wu Shang said that within a week of buying them, strange things began happening. One night, the locked cabinet where the shoes were kept somehow opened, and the shoes were found by the bed, toes pointing toward it. Old sayings warn that shoes pointed at the bed summon ghosts. The cabinet was locked tight, and only he had the key, so how did the shoes get out? Wu Shang noticed the shoes had become even redder, blood red, glaringly so. As an experienced antique dealer who had learned a lot from my grandfather, Wu Shang naturally understood what was happening. That same day, he chose the time with the strongest positive energy, took the shoes far away, and threw them out, kneeling 3 times to bow and apologize to them as he left. Yet that night, Wu Shang's granddaughter came home wearing the shoes, expression blank and trance-like. She took off her school bag, sat in a rocking chair, swung her legs, and hummed folk tunes from the Republic era in a sharp, eerie voice. The shoes were small, like 3-inch lotus shoes, but fit her 5th grade-sized feet perfectly. However, the girl's behavior was strange, as if possessed. Wu Shang's son desperately tried to take off the shoes, but the granddaughter fiercely warned him, saying she would strangle anyone who dared touch them. Her menacing demeanor scared the whole family, and no one dared approach. Wu Shang knew the shoes were causing all this trouble. He knelt and begged the shoes not to harm his family but got no response. The granddaughter sat before the mirror brushing her hair oddly. Though her hair was short, she brushed it downward as if it were long, occasionally letting out a creepy chuckle. It was terrifying. If not for the shoes on her feet, one might think she had gone mad. This is content segment 32/144. Please process the following according to your logic. Maintain the original paragraph structure, line breaks, and overall layout. Return only the processed result. Wu Shang understood that these shoes were no ordinary evil objects. Thinking of my grandfather, who had moved to the countryside and lost contact with Wu Shang for nearly 2 years, he figured only my grandfather could help with this matter, so he came to try his luck. He didn't find my grandfather, but he found me instead. Wu Shang said the shoes were too malevolent. Being older, he didn't dare to take risks, fearing that if anything went wrong, it would be hard to explain. He had previously hired people to perform rituals, but none worked. This was not something an ordinary person could solve. "Sir, I'll take it," I said, flicking a copper coin before pocketing it. I accepted both the coin and the task. Although the shoes were ominous, they were still within my control. Many antiques harbor malevolent spirits, called artifact souls, that cause chaos. Some are deadly. These embroidered shoes were likely one of them. Some items belonging to the deceased carry souls trapped due to tragic deaths and heavy grudges. Over time, the spirits grow more vicious, even lethal. I needed to examine these embroidered shoes myself. According to Wu Shang, they were genuinely dangerous. "Ha? Are you sure it's okay?" Wu Shang sounded doubtful. If anything happened to me, he'd feel he'd let my grandfather down. He feared I might stubbornly get into danger. "Don't worry, sir. As long as there's a copper coin involved, I'll make sure to handle this properly." "No worries," I assured him confidently. Still, I had a question. How did Wu Shang get his hands on these shoes? Such a dangerous object, regardless of the previous owner, must have caused trouble. Extremely cursed items often bring harm to their owners. After several owners die, these things become labeled as evil. No one dares to sell them unless there's a hidden agenda. These embroidered shoes were particularly sinister. Someone definitely wanted to harm Wu Sheng. Given his age, it was normal for others to target him. After hearing my thoughts, Wu Sheng explained the shoes' origin. He said he bought them on a trip to Xinjiang from an old lady who claimed the shoes were a family heirloom. She had to sell them due to financial hardship. Wu Sheng inspected the craftsmanship and didn't suspect anything, so he bought them. But less than a week later, trouble started. He didn't understand why. I stroked my chin thoughtfully and said the old lady was probably a front and that the shoe's real seller was a grave robber. Grave robbing is a serious crime. Those caught become ghosts under the gun. These criminals work covertly, and having the old lady as a cover was entirely plausible. Wu Sheng's hand trembled with anger as he gripped his cane, swearing, "I'm a respectable antique dealer, and I hate grave robbers the most. Digging up graves deserves punishment." I smiled wryly. Some people are desperate enough to do anything. The unlucky one here was Wu Sheng, tricked by grave robbers. He said the old lady seemed harmless, so he didn't think much before buying. The mistake deeply troubled him, bringing misery to himself and his family. He felt very guilty. I told him not to worry. I was confident about handling this. First, I needed to see those embroidered shoes. Wu Sheng agreed, hoping I could meet his expectations. When we left, I spotted a luxury car that made Linyi scream in excitement. A Bugatti Divo. She covered her mouth, stunned, eyes wide with disbelief. "How much is this car worth?" I asked. "Over $5 million, more than 30 million RMB, top-tier luxury," Linyi said before pushing me aside to fuss over Wu Sheng, revealing her gold-digger instincts. This wasn't an ordinary old man, he was a walking goldmine. She even wanted to get close to Wu Sheng, although she wasn't even a woman yet. Wu Sheng chuckled, "It's just a means of transportation. No need to care about it." Damn, this old man really knows how to flaunt his wealth. I thought he was just a regular antique dealer, but he's a billionaire. That car alone could support us for generations. Wu Sheng asked, "Xiaoyang, is this your girlfriend?" I cursed outright, "Of course not. She's not even a woman." Wu Sheng didn't get it, but Linyi caught on immediately. Blinded by money, she ignored my taunts. She was about to leave but then stubbornly refused, insisting on coming with me to the Wu family's place. Of course, it wasn't me she was sticking to, it was Wu Sheng's fortune. Encountering such a wealthy old man, how could she just walk away? I smirked. Since she willingly wanted to be the tool, I'd use her. There was a driver waiting. The three of us got in, and the driver sped toward the Wu residence. Wu Sheng's home wasn't as flashy as the Chen estate but equally valuable, a traditional, antique-style courtyard home with exquisite decoration and a vast grounds. I felt like not many billionaires could afford such a mansion. Linyi, well-traveled and knowledgeable, was just as shocked as I was. This courtyard was even more prestigious than a modern mansion. Wu Sheng invited us inside where a dozen servants came and greeted us repeatedly. This was the life of the wealthy. Linyi looked green with envy, already determined to win over old Wu. Wu Sheng explained he had been widowed for years, so Linyi still had a chance. But at his age, he probably had little interest in that. Using charm would likely fail, and she didn't have many advantages anyway. Wu Sheng led us into the main hall, where several people were already waiting. This is part 33 of 144. Please process the following content according to your logic. Keep the original paragraph structure, line breaks, and overall layout intact. Return only the processed result. A middle-aged woman stepped forward to support him. "Dad, where have you been? We've been looking everywhere for you. We still haven't resolved Tongtong's situation, don't make us worry like this." Wu Sheng sat down and introduced, "This is my daughter-in-law, Lumei, my son, Wu Bo, and my granddaughter, Wu Tongtong, the one possessed by the embroidered shoes." The entire family was in a frenzy, like ants on a hot pan. Besides his son and daughter-in-law, there were two others. One was wearing a gray long gown, resembling a Feng Shui master. He was well-groomed and about my age. The other wore a short jacket, with shifty eyes and a thin mustache, looking like a weasel, cunning and sly. Lumei introduced the man in gray as Su Feng, the eldest young master from the city's top Feng Shui family, a rising star among young Feng Shui masters. Most Feng Shui practitioners his age were mediocre, but Su Feng was extraordinarily talented and already well-known. Someone like him was hard to find without deep pockets. His reputation carried face and high status in the underworld. When the Chen family was searching for help, they couldn't even get Su Feng, which shows his immense value. The Wu family's esteemed reputation in the antiques world was enough to secure Su Feng's presence. If the Chen family had hired Su Feng, those troubles would have been solved long ago. Those third-rate experts couldn't compare. I sized up Su Feng. He carried himself with distinction, but his true skills were still uncertain. Dad, who are these two? Lu Mei looked at me and Linyi, then asked. Wu Sheng glanced at Su Feng and me but didn't introduce us. Waving his hand, he said, let's not discuss this now, let's go check on Tong Tong first. He wasn't snubbing me, he just didn't want to embarrass me. Su Feng, though young, already had a renowned family background in the feng shui world. I couldn't match him. If he truly looked down on me, I would have been kicked out long ago. I wouldn't have even been brought along to see those embroidered shoes. Maybe he hadn't expected the family to hire Su Feng and was worried I'd feel awkward. So he played it cool and led us to see the granddaughter first. Wu Sheng and his group took us to Tong Tong's room. When the door opened, a cold gust blew out like an airless morgue. The windows were tightly shut, blocking sunlight, and the room was dark and gloomy. This room feels so eerie, there's some dirty energy here, Su Feng said, suddenly dipping his finger in some liquid and smearing it over his eyes. What's that? Linyi asked, puzzled. Why put eye drops when catching ghosts? It's ox tears. It opens your eyes, letting you see things usually invisible, I explained. After applying the ox tears, Su Feng's gaze shifted toward the room. He saw the little girl sitting before a mirror, wearing bright red lipstick, brushing her hair over and over while softly singing a Republic-era folk song. Her voice was sharp and piercing, very unsettling. Most terrifying was the blood-red embroidered shoes on her feet, red as if soaked in blood. Her tiny feet swung back and forth, hovering without touching the ground. What do you see? The Wu family anxiously asked. Su Feng frowned. There's a woman clinging to her back, staring at us with cold, eerie eyes. The woman Su Feng described was invisible to us. Obviously, she wasn't human but a ghost. Immediately, cold sweat broke out on everyone. They stared nervously at Tong Tong. Such a small child already haunted by an evil spirit, the Wu family was both scared and desperate. Particularly Wu Sheng, who felt immense guilt. His granddaughter's suffering was entirely due to buying that pair of embroidered shoes, and he accepted full responsibility. Master Su, please, we beg you to save my granddaughter, Wu Sheng pleaded urgently. Su Feng sighed, looking troubled. This female ghost is from the Republic era, with heavy resentment. I can face her alone no problem, but Tong Tong is possessed. If I act rashly, I might hurt her. The situation's complicated. But if we don't exorcise her soon, Tong Tong won't last more than a few days, he added. This terrified the Wu family. Wu Bo nearly knelt down, begging and ready to pay any price. All right then. The Su and Wu families have a deep bond. Even if it costs me several years of life, I'll save your little girl, Su Feng sighed, seeming willing to sacrifice himself. Thank you. Thank you so much, Master Su. The Wu family was overwhelmed with gratitude. Sacrificing lifespan was no small matter. At that moment, a middle-aged man resembling a weasel spoke up from beside Su Feng. Su Feng called him Shui, a kind of senior advisor. With the young master saying that, shouldn't the Wu family show some goodwill? Shui raised his eyebrows as a hint. Wu Sheng understood immediately and agreed. Say the word, money, antiques, whatever you want. Shui caught the hint, grinning. I heard the Wu family has a pair of exceptional dragon pearls. How about? Wu Sheng froze. His son and daughter-in-law also showed uneasy expressions. No such thing? Shui pressed. Wu Bo looked embarrassed. We do, but those are Dad's cherished treasures, practically priceless. Tens of billions couldn't buy them. Your asking price is just too steep. Later I learned those dragon pearls were two giant luminous pearls, as big as fists, able to light up the night. Said to be dragon's eyes, incredibly rare. Foreign collectors had offered tens of billions of dollars for them, but Wu Sheng never sold. Su Feng, however, bluntly asked for those treasures. No wonder he looked down on the Chen family. They had landed a fat pig with the Wu family, ready to cash in big. Mr. Wu, just now you said anything would do. You're a man of great virtue and respect, your word should count, right? The young master is already ill. His life shouldn't be considered less valuable than two dragon pearls, should it? The steward deliberately imposed a moral bind, cunningly. Well, I can't do that, that's my father's treasured possession. We can give anything else, Wu Bo quickly objected, seeing his father silent. You know the young master's status. He won't be interested in anything else, the steward insisted firmly. Seeing the deadlock, Su Feng feigned diplomacy. No worries, our families have a deep bond. It's okay if you don't give them. I just like these treasures, I would never take what someone loves. Though polite, the pressure remained. Suddenly, Mr. Wu said, it's just a pair of night pearls, right? Fine. Those are just lifeless objects. Tong Tong is my true treasure. Young Master Su, since you saved her, the dragon pearls are yours. Rest assured. On the surface, Wu seemed at ease, but his face looked grim, his legs trembling as he leaned on someone, clearly in deep pain. But he had no choice. Saving his granddaughter was more important than anything. No antique could compare to family, especially since this mess was his own doing. Guilt and tenderness compelled Wu to make a difficult decision. He was willing to give this precious pair to Su Feng. Su Feng felt a surge of joy and laughed, patting his chest in promise. Don't worry, old sir, I'll risk my life to expel the evil ghost possessing Tong Tong. She'll be completely safe. Wu nodded. I leave it in your hands. You all step back, I'll handle this, Su Feng said, pulling out a peachwood sword, yellow talisman, and a bagua mirror. Wait! I suddenly interrupted. Everyone turned to me. I had stayed silent, watching Tong Tong, listening closely to their conversation. Actually, Su Feng had no good intentions. He was deceiving the Wu family. He did have abilities, but he didn't need to shorten his lifespan to easily subdue a female ghost. All those claims were deliberately exaggerated lies. His goal was clear, to scare the Wu family and then extort their priceless antiques. He was capable but utterly unethical, breaking all the rules of Feng Shui masters. His powerful connections made him brazen. I'll take this job. I guarantee Tong Tong will be fine. I don't want the night pearls or anything else, just 100,000 renminbi, I suddenly said. This deal was worth billions, yet I casually put the price at 100,000. Everyone was stunned, staring at me. Even Mr. Wu's eyes widened. He was speechless. For this little matter, demanding billions? You might as well go rob someone. Are you even human? Everyone froze, hearing I could solve the problem with just 100,000. Su Feng was first silent, then sneered. Brother, don't talk nonsense. This female ghost is from the Republican era and vicious. If you think you can capture her without harming Tong Tong's hair, you're dreaming. He didn't believe I had the skills, shooting me a warning glare. Holding the dragon pearls, he clearly disliked my interruption. I said, I guarantee it 100,000, deal or no deal? I looked to Mr. Wu. If he nodded, I would act immediately. The ghost was fierce, but I wasn't afraid. Are you really capable? This concerns a life. Don't act recklessly, Mr. Wu hesitated. Relax. I can subdue her, and I promise no harm will come to Tong Tong. I gave an okay sign. Compared to Su Feng's exorbitant price, 100,000 was a pittance, naturally tempting to the Wu family. Mr. Su, shall we let him try first? Mr. Wu looked at Su Feng, hesitant but willing to test. Su Feng snorted coldly. Don't worry, my work is fair, I won't charge a penny extra. If he wants to offer less, let him give it a shot. He said this with a sour expression, glaring at me, a sinister smile appearing. Xiao Yang, I'm counting on you. Mr. Wu pinned all his hopes on me. Since it was agreed, I said nothing more and entered the room to begin subduing the ghost. Unlike Su Feng, I didn't ask them to leave, I let everyone watch. Lin Yi followed me in. The room was cold to the bone and dim, like a morgue. Lin Yi shivered as she entered, frightened. Are you crazy? Why drag me in here? Don't be scared, I'm here to protect you. Besides, Tong Tong is Wu family's treasure, aren't you going to help? I tried to reassure her. She was money hungry, hoping to win over Mr. Wu. My words intrigued her, but I didn't want her to help with acting. I was using her as a tool. Debts unpaid, I had to collect some interest. Fine, but you have to protect me, she quickly agreed. I promised that with me here, no ghost would dare cause trouble. She had seen my skills and naturally believed me. At that moment, Tong Tong suddenly turned her head, her eyes blood red, fiercely roaring, "Get out!" Her voice was sharp, nothing like a little girl. Her thick makeup made her face pale as flower and sinister, like a demonic spirit. So scary. Has she been possessed? That handsome guy said someone suppressing her, but I didn't see it. Lin Yi trembled behind me. Don't speak. You'll be useful later, I quickly told her to keep quiet. This is excerpt 35 of 144. Please process the content below logically. Keep the original paragraph structure, line breaks, and overall layout, returning only the processed result. The thing is, the female ghost really did possess Tong Tong. It's the fierce ghost from the embroidered shoes, but Su Feng lied. The ghost wasn't lying on top of Tong Tong, she was just standing behind her. That difference is huge. Standing behind means the ghost didn't want to harm her, just to possess her. Su Feng exaggerated the facts to scare the Wu family and seized the opportunity to demand an exorbitant fee. He thought he was the only one who could communicate with spirits. But I can do it too. He needs to use ox tears for spirit communication. I directly opened my yin-yang eyes. I saw the ghost, hair disheveled, in a red wedding gown, wearing embroidered shoes, standing behind Tong Tong. Her hair covered her face, making her features indistinguishable, like Sadako. I said, "You're already dead, stop haunting. Lay down your grudges today, and I'll help you transcend and reincarnate." Her deep red wedding gown was like fresh blood, as if she died on her wedding day, her death horrific, resentment extremely heavy. Suddenly, Tong Tong yelled, "I told you to get lost," then desperately pinched her own neck, face flushing red. The ghost's resentment exploded tenfold, emitting a red glow, extremely violent. She fiercely strangled Tong Tong while Tong Tong squeezed her own neck. This isn't right. Why did the ghost suddenly get so violent? I hadn't done anything and was trying to help Tong Tong. I glanced at Su Feng, he was smug, everything under his control. This guy is too devious. He used spells to enrage the ghost, making me fail to subdue her and leaving me embarrassed. He knew only a few spells, but the fact he could make the ghost furious and resentment surge shows his cultivation is high, but his character is terrible. He's doomed to fall into madness. "Tong Tong, my daughter, don't," Lu Mei screamed, afraid something would happen to her daughter. Wu Sheng and Wu Bo trembled in fear, worried chaos would erupt. "Dad, can we trust this guy? Don't risk Tong Tong for cheap. Su Xiaoye is more reliable, much stronger, and we can still make money. We only have one daughter." Wu Bo regretted and complained to Wu Sheng. Wu Sheng smiled bitterly, staring at Tong Tong. If anything went wrong, they'd immediately replace the person, his face full of regret. "Humph, old Wu, our young master's cultivation is genuine, incomparable to these hustlers. If you stubbornly try to save money and endanger your granddaughter, that's on you. It's still not too late to change now, but delay, and Tong Tong will die. Not even my young master can save her," the Shifu sneered, taking the opportunity to trample me and threaten Wu Sheng. Su Feng stayed silent but looked at me triumphantly, as if saying, "Let's see how you die." Everyone thought I had no real power and was all talk. Then Tong Tong's hand relaxed, gradually lowering, the hostility on her face disappearing. Wu Sheng was about to make me step back and let Su Feng go in, as Tong Tong was his only granddaughter and he didn't want to lose her. But he froze. "No way." Su Feng stared in shock. The ghost was just raging and full of resentment, definitely going to hurt someone. But in less than a minute, I had calmed her. There was only one possibility: my cultivation not only suppressed the ghost but far surpassed his. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to break the spell so quickly. Su Feng didn't know I took advantage of his arrogance and did two things. First, I stuck a sudden talisman on Linyi. This talisman gathers energy, drawing souls, the kind of places ghosts love due to heavy energy. Some people are more prone to ghost attachment because of bad luck or heavy inside them. Tong Tong was young and carried energy, so the ghost clung to her, otherwise, it should have targeted Wu Sheng first. After sticking the talisman on Linyi, her energy surged 10 times stronger than Tong Tong's. Second, I recited the Lengyan mantra to drive the ghost away and suppressed her with a yellow talisman. This mantra is the king of exorcism. As long as the opponent's cultivation is lower, chanting it forces the ghost to retreat. Chanting is difficult, fast and intricate, with hand gestures. I usually avoid it because it's a hassle. The yellow talisman I brought was soaked with black dog's blood, which is particularly effective at breaking curses and controlling ghosts. Others might spit dog's blood on graves to prevent ghosts from reincarnating, proof of black dog blood's power. Using these two moves together, the ghost was no match, scared away onto Linyi. The embroidered shoes disappeared, replaced by Linyi's high heels. She stood on tiptoes, as if floating, clearly possessed. Exactly, Linyi was my substitute. The ghost possessed her, leaving Tong Tong free, making things much easier. Once the ghost possessed Linyi, Tong Tong instantly softened, her arms went limp, and she slumped in the chair. I quickly grabbed her and handed her back to the Wu family. Though unconscious, she was fine. Su Feng thought a multi-billion deal would stump me, but I settled it in minutes. He deliberately exaggerated the ghost's power to rob the family's dragon orb, a complete robbery. As the Wu family wept with joy, Su Feng took the chance to lean on my shoulder and whisper threats. "Kid, enough. Leave now while you can, or I'll make sure you never recover. I'm not someone you want to offend." "Humph, is that so? I want to see what real skills your Feng Shui big families truly have," I said coldly. "What's he?" "I reached this level in 3 months, it took him over a decade. They've been training since childhood, I only started at 18, and within 2 years, I left them miles behind." "A genius? No one dares utter those 2 words in front of me." Su Feng didn't expect me to be so tough. He thought I didn't know about his background, which gave him the courage to disrespect me. "Do you know who I am? A prodigy in the Feng Shui world, the sole heir of a great Feng Shui family. Cross me, and you won't have a good outcome." Su Feng began bragging about his status, trying to intimidate me. But I didn't care at all. No matter how big your family is, you don't have the right to call me your rival. My grandfather is a demi-immortal in the Feng Shui world. Being an immortal means shouldering responsibility, otherwise, you're either a mess or doomed to die suddenly. Feng calls himself a prodigy, yet after many years of practice, he still can't match my level after just 2 years. Hearing him brag about being a genius only makes me laugh. So what? Being the boy genius of a Feng Shui family means you can trick me out of my treasure? You're no different from a street con artist, I snort, completely dismissing him. Tong is already safe, what can he do to me? Feng shot daggers at me, fuming, but powerless. Get lost, don't block me from finishing this. I shoved him aside and continued dealing with the female ghost. He was furious, probably never treated like this before. Wu Sheng's family was cold to him. I knew he had a notable background, but he didn't deserve his position. Facing me, he was done for. The female ghost had possessed Linny, making the situation complicated. Normally, my skills are enough to easily subdue such ghosts. But I worried she might do something desperate and harm Tong. She's just a child with a weak constitution. Exposure to Yin energy could affect her for life, maybe even cause permanent madness. Linny was different. I didn't fear for her life, so handling her was much easier, no need for caution. Bold demon, go reincarnate. Stop haunting the living. I shouted, full of force. Linny's cursed soul was truly wretched. I didn't care. Though she hadn't killed anyone, I wanted to understand why. If possible, I'd save her. It's easy to kill a ghost, but hard to save one. None of your business. I do whatever I want, and you can't stop me, Linny's sharp scream echoed. Her hair wild, face twisted in rage. She knew I was powerful and was wary, then suddenly bolted. Her terrifying appearance, like a malevolent spirit, made Wu's family scream and back away. How could I let her escape? With one hand, I grabbed her soul. Biting my finger, I wrote an incantation. The spell combined with the soul-grabbing hand sealed her, immobilizing her. This technique pierces flesh to snatch souls. It doesn't just catch a person but locks down the ghost inside, preventing escape. Other talismans or artifacts only force ghosts out. The soul-grabbing hand can capture them directly. Linny screamed miserably, terrifying yet trapped, half-kneeling. A soul-grabbing hand. The Taoist master had seen many and understood the technique. Young master, this one's no pushover, we're in trouble, the master warned Feng. Feng sneered, unimpressed. Come out and fight if you're able. He knew offending me would only bring trouble. Losing billions was a debt to be paid. I ignored them and focused on subduing the ghost. Using the soul-grabbing hand, I pinned her near the window and pulled back the curtains. Sunlight poured in, brightening the room instantly. Close the window. Linny shrieked in agony, her face contorted. Under the sunlight, white smoke rose, embroidered shoes almost burning. Ghosts can't endure sunlight, exposure turns them to ash. Holding her soul tight, she was trapped inside Linny's body. If you die, I'll take you down with me, the ghost threatened. Fine by me. I sneered, not bothered. The ghost was melting fast, white smoke swirling, her face rotting away in patches. Spare me. Spare me. I won't dare again, please. She finally pleaded, realizing death was inevitable. If you'd begged sooner, you wouldn't have suffered so much, I said coolly, sticking a yellow talisman on Linny's chest. Come out. The embroidered shoe shot out with a thud, landing in the corner. The ghost appeared, weak and terrified, as if fused with the shoe. She knelt, begging for mercy, hiding in the shadowed corner away from sunlight to temporarily save herself. Linny's eyes rolled back, and she collapsed unconscious. Please spare me. I won't do it again. The ghost knelt, her fate in my hands. Her resentment was strong and vicious, but she hadn't harmed anyone. Her cultivation was low, a mere attached soul haunting the shoe, not a truly vengeful spirit. Subduing her was easier than expected. Without Feng interfering, it would have been even smoother. See? Demanding billions to capture this ghost wasn't unreasonable, just the right lesson for that arrogant guy. If he had charged a normal fee and properly helped the Wu family rescue Tong, I wouldn't have stepped in. Feng Shui respects first come, first served. I can't steal business unless Wu Sheng specifically requests me. I am taking his money after all. But with Su Feng's actions, I had to put him in his place. Besides, Wu Sheng is my grandfather's friend. I couldn't watch him get scammed. The ghost was already subdued and kneeling in submission. I had no reason to finish her off. Why is your soul attached to the embroidered shoes causing trouble? Why don't you go reincarnate? I asked. The female ghost dared not hide the truth and slowly began to tell her story. She was from the Republican era, died on her wedding day. When her bridal party was attacked by bandits, everyone with her was killed. She was gang-raped by more than a dozen bandits, suffering worse than death. The bandits didn't kill her, but when she woke up, she was surrounded by corpses, struggling back to her in-laws' home. But she never married. Her body was ravaged by the bandits, her reputation ruined. The in-laws, afraid of gossip, rejected her and demanded the bride price returned in full, not a single cent spared. The ghost was crushed, her heart dead as ashes. The next morning, she hanged herself in front of the in-laws' house. The in-laws cursed her as bad luck, hastily wrapped the body and dumped it in the wilderness to bury. Her embroidered shoes were quite valuable, yet they stripped them off to sell, as if dead people's belongings don't attract ghosts. Those shoes were woven by her mother over 3 years for her to wear. The ghost's resentment soared, her angry spirit attached itself to the embroidered shoes, and from then on, the in-laws' household was plagued by hauntings. Later, a Taoist priest advised the family to buy a coffin, select a proper grave, and bury the embroidered shoes along with her remains. Only then did the disturbances cease. But tomb raiders dug up the shoes and sold them to Wu Shang, and sure enough, that was the root of the trouble. The moment the shoes appeared, mischief started immediately, even haunting Tong Tong. However, the ghost never harmed anyone, she had simply been trapped in the coffin too long and wanted to get some fresh air on Tong Tong's body. After finishing her story, she begged me to spare her, not to kill her. This ghost had suffered terribly and hadn't harmed Tong Tong. She didn't deserve to die, she should be guided to reincarnate. Staying attached would only turn her into an evil spirit. Thank you, Master, for sparing me. I'm willing to let go of my resentment and move on to the afterlife for reincarnation, she said gratefully, bowing her head. After all, killing her wouldn't help. The bandits and cruel in-laws from back then were long dead. It was time for her to let go. I will help you transcend. Go in peace and reincarnate, I chanted the prayer for passing on. The ghost closed her eyes, ready to leave. Suddenly, 7 yellow talismans shot out like arrows, hitting 7 points on her body. She screamed in agony, her spirit badly wounded. Then, a demon-subduing pestle plunged heavily into her chest. Her spirit instantly disintegrated, dying a cruel death, dissipating like ashes, leaving behind a single tear before vanishing. 7 calamity talismans? I shouted in shock. Humph, you recognize them? Su Feng grinned proudly. Our ghost-killing skills aren't bad, right? It turned out Su Feng used the talismans, and the master used the demon-subduing pestle. They took advantage of my chanting to strike suddenly, cruel beyond measure. I hadn't expected them to act at that moment, caught completely off guard. The ghost was reduced to ashes right before my eyes. Congratulations, young master. That's your 952nd ghost killed, the master said, smiling as he jotted down the tally in a little notebook, clearly very pleased. Are you crazy? She had let go of all resentment and was about to reincarnate. Why kill her? I demanded angrily. Su Feng sneered, evil ghosts have to be killed. What good is guiding them? She didn't harm anyone? Look at Tong Tong and her, they both passed out. You won't leave her alive for New Year? You should quit being a feng shui master and become a saint instead. I clenched my fists. He was deliberately provoking me. Didn't he fear divine retribution for such deeds? I would never let him get away with this. Su Feng was utterly vicious. I never imagined that just as I was about to help the ghost move on, he and the master secretly teamed up and attacked. The defenseless ghost was wiped out brutally right in front of me. When a person dies, they become a ghost. When a ghost is destroyed, they cease to exist and can't reincarnate. So, it's better to save ghosts than to kill them. Su Feng was carrying out reckless murder and didn't deserve to be called a feng shui master. If the ghost had truly meant harm, Tong Tong wouldn't still be alive, and neither would the Wu family. She suffered terribly in life, and after death, was persecuted by Su Feng. This made my blood boil with rage. I confronted him, but he arrogantly bragged, acting like this achievement was something to boast about, completely ignorant of the sin he was committing. Ha! A so-called young genius who can't even see his own mistakes but dares to call himself a prodigy? Brother, you don't have the ability. No evil spirit would just obediently reincarnate. If you don't kill her now, you won't be able to handle the consequences later, Su Feng taunted coldly. Anyone in the know would understand the ghost had already let go of her resentment and was prepared to reincarnate. But this guy lacked any morality. Killing the innocent out of personal grudges won't end well for you. Feng Shui is about cause and effect. You've already sown evil seeds, I retorted coldly. He stepped closer, completely dismissing me, whispering threats, trash, yin and yang are about power. If you have the guts, stay out of my way. Your end won't be better than hers. He smiled coldly, then turned to announce to the Wu family, I killed the ghost. I'm not taking a single cent. This is goodbye. His meaning was clear, he did the deed, wouldn't charge this time, and I couldn't accept payment either. I had interfered with his plans, so naturally he wouldn't let me off easily. These so-called noble families truly had ugly faces. A feng shui master follows rules. I hadn't completed my task, so I wouldn't take any money. It was his business to forcibly intervene. I wouldn't accept payment, but I wasn't afraid to confront him either. His arrogance put me on alert, he had powerful backing. I couldn't afford to provoke him, but I also wouldn't let him off the hook. At this point, for the sake of the female ghost, I had to seek justice. Just as Feng was about to leave, I called out to him. Young Master Su, you lost tens of billions in dragon orbs, but you're willing to lose only 100,000? Doesn't that sting enough? I deliberately provoked him. People like him cared most about face, he absolutely couldn't take being challenged. Oomph, kid, you're asking for death. Feng glared back at me with murderous intent. Young Master Su wants me dead? Here's your chance. I do want to die, I'm just afraid you don't have the guts, I taunted him with a sneer. The advisor spotted a flaw and immediately interrupted. Kid, who's your master? What's your standing in the feng shui world? No name, no sect, I replied. My second uncle forbade me from revealing my identity, and the fact that I was the son of the Qilin was a secret as well. And your master? Surely he has a reputation, the advisor pressed. My master is low-key and doesn't reveal himself, I answered coolly. The advisor scoffed, an unknown nobody, yet pretending to be modest. Then he turned to Feng. This kid's got no name or sect. We don't need to waste time on him. Afraid to admit it? Don't go spouting about some feng shui prodigy, I kept riling him. Nonsense, I'm not scared. Since you're looking for death, I'll grant it, Feng said decisively. 10 miles outside the city lies a chaotic graveyard with blood corpses. Whoever can pull 2 zombie teeth within 3 days wins. What's the bet? What happens if you lose? I asked. Without hesitation, Feng said, unknown nobody, if you lose, strip naked and run 3 laps in public, humiliating yourself. I inwardly rejoiced. I had finally drawn out his harsh words. But the bet was too small to compensate for the wrongful soul of the female ghost. Add another condition, I said with a sly smile. What condition? Feng narrowed his eyes. The loser runs naked and also has to howl like a sun-mother pig. How about that? I said meaningfully. The sun was a veiled insult implying something disgusting, yet my hatred burned deep. The stake was brutal enough. He laughed heartily. Kid, you've got unusual taste. Fine. Today the Wu family will witness. Whoever cheats will meet a bad end, I swear this under the name of a feng shui master. Deal. I agreed enthusiastically, not afraid of his tricks. Don't mess around. Wu Sheng suddenly stepped forward to oppose, pulling me aside. Xiao Yang, don't be impulsive. Feng is not someone to mess with. He's got deep backing, and you alone can't beat him. Wu Sheng, a close friend of my grandfather, urged, worried I'd get in trouble. And that chaotic graveyard he mentioned is really terrifying. Not only are there zombies, but also vicious spirits. Even the wind feels eerie during the day. No one dares to go near it. If you go, you'll be lucky to survive, Wu Sheng went on. I knew nothing of that graveyard, but after hearing Wu Sheng's words, my curiosity piqued. I seized the chance to ask what kind of place that chaotic graveyard really was, and why it was so dangerous. Any place haunted by ghosts and bloodied corpses had to be a sinister land. Sinister lands come in many varieties: poor feng shui, improperly arranged graves, restless spirits, and heavy corpse qi. Some become chaotic cemeteries that no one dares to venerate because they're filled with yin energy and extreme malevolence. Since Feng insisted on settling things there, the place must be extremely perilous. Wu Sheng sighed deeply, explaining that a tragic incident had actually occurred here. Many years ago, it was just an ordinary mound of graves. It turned into a chaotic and sinister ground due to a human trafficking outbreak. A village called Jingming, located 10 miles outside the city, was remote and impoverished. The men couldn't find wives, most were bachelors in their 40s. Because it was so backward, no women were willing to marry in. Without women, the village was destined for extinction. To have wives and children, the villagers had to buy wives from human traffickers. The whole village was involved, and no one dared speak out. The kidnapped women had no escape for life, forced to resign themselves to bear children there. 2 brothers, Lin San and Lin Si, both in their 40s and still single, were tasked by their family to buy wives from the traffickers. They got lucky and bought a beautiful college girl, fair-skinned and sweet-faced. But because the traffickers overdosed her with drugs, she turned mentally disabled, stammered when she spoke, and looked dazed. Though Lin San was old and ugly, he was grateful just to marry a campus beauty. He didn't care about her mind, only wanting to carry on the family line. After 3 days of raising money, they held a simple wedding, which was still a happy occasion. But something happened before their wedding night. A drunk Lin San came home only to find his younger brother Lin Si had already slept with the girl. She was simple-minded, so no one stopped it. Lin Si took the chance to become her man first. Lin San couldn't stand it, and the brothers fought fiercely, becoming the village's laughingstock. Lin Si claimed the girl wasn't a virgin, that the traffickers had repeatedly abused her. Lin San had not married a new woman but a second-hand one, possibly multiple times over. Jealous that his brother had a wife while he remained alone, Lin Si ridiculed him, drawing more mockery from the villagers. Lin San became a joke, losing his bride to his own brother on their wedding night. Lin San was furious and vented all his anger on the girl, often abusing her and locking the door whenever he left to prevent her from escaping. The girl frequently muttered, "I want to go home, I want to go home," and often tried to run away, but was dragged back and beaten. The village was remote, the roads difficult to traverse, and everyone in the village was in cahoots, determined not to let her escape. Those who had been beaten into submission resigned themselves to their fate, but the girl refused to give in, enduring torment until she was unrecognizable. While Lin San was at work, his younger brother refused to give her food, and the entire family showed no mercy. The girl became pregnant, the father of the child unknown. But the family only cared about having an heir. The child was a girl, and in this male preference village, Lin San became even more brutal, starving both the girl and her baby. The mother and child endured unimaginable suffering, as though living in hell. Lin Si watched the child with a sinister smile. "Growing up fast, huh?" The girl's eyes changed, though slow-witted. Becoming a mother gave her a newfound awareness. One tragic night, the girl unlocked her chain and, holding her child, jumped into the river to end their lives, 2 lives lost in one body. Villagers found them the next morning and called the police, who quickly arrived. Because this was a life-and-death matter, the investigation uncovered that the girl was actually involved in a human trafficking case. She had been bought by Lin San, clearly illegal. But Lin San refused to admit it, insisting she was a madwoman who had wandered into the village and became his wife, and that the entire village could vouch for him. He denied forcing her or having any contact with traffickers. The entire village conspired together, leaving the police without evidence. At that time, conditions were poor, and many matters were hard to investigate. The trafficked women were locked inside their homes, and even after giving birth, they dared not expose their husbands. In such a remote, impoverished village full of rough people, without evidence, nothing could be done. Vehicles couldn't even reach it, and villagers carried hoes, unafraid of anyone. To cut off a woman's lineage was to cause annihilation. No one feared death. In the end, the case was dropped, but the girl's identity was confirmed, and her father came overnight to collect her body. The girl came from a single-parent household. Her mother had died early. Her father raised her alone and put her through school. She was promising, she got into university, was beautiful with bright, clear eyes, and had a bright future ahead. But while working a summer job, she was drugged and abducted by traffickers, subjected to torture, suffering a fate worse than death. One good college girl was destroyed like this. It was truly tragic. Her father wept bitterly at the corpse, holding his daughter. She had once been obedient and beautiful, but now she was unrecognizable, her death violent, her skin yellowed and swollen, her eyes wide open, clearly dead with unresolved grievances. He even held a pitiful infant in his arms, a sight that brought tears to passers-by. But the villains were never caught. The traffickers escaped. The young woman died in agony, her bright future completely destroyed. The father cried until his eyes bled, holding the body and crying nonstop for a whole day and night until he became dizzy. When he woke up, he was silent and expressionless. Many said he had gone mad. He quietly left the village with the body, without causing a scene or yelling. Lin San and the villagers breathed a sigh of relief, fearing the family might cause trouble and reveal their secrets, which would have brought a thorough police investigation. The father said nothing, and the police left the next day. Without evidence, such poor villages were common, and all the authorities could do was suppress human traffickers. Time passed, and people relaxed. Though Lin San lost his wife, he avoided jail, which was considered lucky. No one knew the girl's father was an accomplished Feng Shui master. He had once left the underworld because of 5 evils and 3 deficiencies, which had caused his wife's death. If he didn't stop, his daughter would also be harmed. For his daughter's safety, he changed careers and lived as an ordinary man, donating all his previous mystical earnings to charity. He found a simple job to raise his daughter well. She was obedient and got into a good university. But fate was cruel. The father, who loved his daughter dearly, was met with disaster. For years he searched for answers but only found his daughter's cold corpse. Remembering her smiling face, he wept endlessly. His daughter was his last line of defense. Whoever dared hurt her would have no place to bury their bones. All the people in this village will be buried with my daughter, he roared. You could offend anyone, but never a Feng Shui master. Seeing his daughter's brutal death, the once retired master had finally snapped and vowed to make the whole village pay. The villagers of Jingning village thought the trouble was over, the police had left, and especially Lin San's family secretly rejoiced. Little did they know, death was slowly coming, a dark cloud enveloping the village. 3 days later, Lin San's family was the first to suffer. Lin San's younger brother suddenly went mad, wielding a sickle to brutally kill Lin San, skinning him alive, then wandering the village like a ghost, murmuring, "The Lin family is like swine and dogs. Jingning village will be slaughtered. Return my daughter's soul, avenge my blood feud. My daughter is my flesh and blood. Killing her is like cutting my heart and blood. The revenge will be served. I will use you to sacrifice to the heavens and return my daughter's soul." Lin San died a horrific death. His skin was peeled, and his flesh chopped into mince fed to pigs. The horror was beyond words. Lin Si wore his brother's skin, wandering blood-soaked for 3 days. No one dared stop him. 3 days later, Lin Si cut off his own genitals and hanged himself. Clutching his severed parts, tongue protruding, eyes wide open, clearly unable to rest in peace, as if he had witnessed something truly terrifying. With 2 sons dead in such a manner, the villagers understood clearly, it had to be the girl's father taking revenge. The elders quickly called Lin San's father, Lin Shu, to visit the ancestral grave. Lin Shu was in his 60s and acted harshly and cruelly. No one in the village respected him. After his 2 sons died, he trembled with fear, and with the support of the villagers, he stumbled his way to visit his ancestral grave. In Jingming village, there was a communal cemetery where the deceased were buried. Lin Shu discovered that his ancestral grave had been splashed with black dog's blood, a curse said to prevent the ancestral spirit from finding peace, dooming the descendants to disaster. Even more horrifying, the grave soil had been disturbed, and the coffin was nailed shut with 7 red steel nails, each etched with curses and reeking of blood. These were the 7 Sha nails, symbolizing death, loss of wealth, and destruction of soul, signifying the end of descendants and that souls would not transcend. Upon hearing this, Lin Shu collapsed to the ground, realizing he had crossed someone ruthless and fearing he wouldn't survive. He never imagined that the weeping girl who had fled was the daughter of a Feng Shui master. Just as regret coursed through him, the coffin suddenly creaked open, as if something inside was trying to escape. Terrified, the villagers all backed away, and Lin Shu fled in utter desperation. Then, several coffin lids flew open, revealing decayed bodies that sat up, their faces eerily replaced by fox masks, letting out chilling laughter. The corpses were decomposed, some just skeletons, yet all wore those ghostly fox faces with eyes that seemed alive. Someone screamed, "Fox spirits possess the dead, this is a corpse transformation," and fled in terror. The villagers witnessed corpses rising from the dead in broad daylight and scattered in panic. Lin Shu's legs gave out, he collapsed to the ground, wetting himself. The bodies chuckled sinisterly and then surrounded Lin Shu. Terrified beyond words, he cried out, "You are my ancestors, I am your descendant, please don't come near me." But the corpses, like ghosts, began to tear into Lin Shu. His screams were constant as they devoured him down to his bones. The villagers regained their senses and rushed to the grave hill, only to find bloodstains everywhere, Lin Shu's body mangled and devoured, flesh stripped from bone. Lin Shu was viciously eaten alive by his own ancestors, an unthinkably terrifying scene that left the entire village pale with shock. Strangely, the fox faces then vanished, and the corpses returned to normal. The villagers thought it was over, but the storm was far from settled. The girl's father was seeking revenge against the whole village, his goal to drag everyone to the grave. Starting with the Lin family, no one in the village would escape. He even altered the feng shui of the ancestral grave, condemning Jingning village to endless misfortune. Ancestral tombs are tied to the fate of an entire village. Tampering with their feng shui brings disaster to all. From then on, accidents and deaths plagued Jingning village frequently. Children rarely survived past infancy, crops failed utterly, and water ghosts haunted the river, killing at will. Widows multiplied, and on the 1st and 15th of each lunar month, villagers often went insane, becoming dangerously violent, armed with knives to slaughter families, wiping out entire households without exception. Gradually, Jingning village fell into decline. A few resilient souls fled, but fewer than 10 survived. Most visitors to the village met fatal accidents within a week, the danger especially acute. Some skeptics forced their way in but ended up dead, whether strangled in widows' beds or drowned in the river without a trace. The unluckiest even choked to death while eating. Over time, no one dared enter. Within 5 years, Jingming village was completely abandoned. The ancestral graves fell into neglect, becoming a chaotic graveyard. Many villagers who had died unjustly were buried there. Over time, the lingering negative energy intensified, growing as menacing as the village itself. Moreover, the girl's father also altered the mountain tomb's feng shui, turning it into a nurturing ground. Those interred there, filled with resentment, became ghosts. Those with hostile energy turned into corpses. No one dared approach the chaotic graveyard for over a decade. Even feng shui masters who visited perished violently, never to return. The place was truly terrifying. Once, a businessman who scoffed at superstition tried to develop the graveyard into an amusement park. Within days, he slashed his own throat, a strange smile frozen on his face. Workers reported eerie ghostly figures and twitching corpses resembling zombies. Those who witnessed them later fell gravely ill, sometimes seeing laughing villagers by their bedside. Work ceased, and no one dared touch the graveyard. Even powerful feng shui masters avoided the place. No one wanted to risk death. That abandoned village was later turned into a crematorium, which operated without issue or hauntings. But the chaotic graveyard remained a place of great evil. If I were to bet with Su Feng on who dared to enter, no doubt the odds would be 9 out of 10 deaths. Wu Sheng told me the story behind the graveyard. It was terrifying. Su Feng was no ordinary man. He was deeply skilled and well-connected. Wu Sheng worried about me going there since he was an old friend of my grandfather and didn't want to see me harmed. He urged me not to go. He also advised against crossing Su Feng, explaining that many of the city's feng shui clans wielded great power and should not be provoked. Even Wu Sheng, wealthy as he was, treaded carefully in their presence. I appreciated Wu Sheng's kindness, but I refused to endure this any longer. This feud had to be settled once and for all. I promised him firmly, "Old Wu, don't worry, I'll be fine. Thank you so much." That chaotic graveyard was indeed frightening, but I felt no fear. Su Feng's bet struck exactly the kind of challenge I craved. I absolutely had to win. You think you deserve to beat me? Just wait and see, kid." Su Feng snorted coldly and left with his advisor. Wu Sheng sighed and shook his head, feeling that things were beyond repair. He blamed himself for not stopping me from coming, but more than that, he was worried. He didn't know my true strength. I didn't blame him. Instead, I found his concern comforting. I couldn't accept payment from Wu Sheng for this matter. Su Feng had interfered halfway through and prevented me from finishing what I needed to do. The rule is clear: no payment unless the job is completed. An unfinished job is a failure. The ghost girl was killed by Su Feng. This case wasn't complete. Even though I couldn't take the money, I could settle scores with Su Feng. This was exactly why I had to fight him, to reclaim the feng shui master's dignity and avenge the ghost girl by making him pay the price. Within 3 days, I would retrieve the bloodied teeth from the chaotic graveyard and bring Su Feng's reputation crashing down. The thought of picturing him with that old sow made me almost laugh. I fetched cold water and splashed it on Linny. She shivered and woke up instantly. After possessing her, the ghost girl had kept her unconscious. She didn't know what happened or that I had been using her as a tool. "Old Wu, I'm leaving for today," I said as I pulled Linny out of Wu's house. She stubbornly refused to leave upon waking and wanted to stay and make money. I was too tired to argue, so I left her dreaming in vain. Linny and Old Chen were dodging debts and refusing to pay, which meant Wu Sheng had lost this deal. Out of 5 cases, he'd only received payment for 2. Life could be tough. As long as they held copper coins, I couldn't refuse. Regardless of their character, I had to grit my teeth and keep going. It was frustrating. I didn't know whether this was the mess my grandfather left behind or some kind of test. Human nature is scarier than ghosts. I truly realized that this time. "Linny, if you don't pay, don't bother reclaiming your eating tool. Just learn to live as a mute woman." Old Chen gave him 3 days. "If he doesn't transfer the money, I won't show mercy. His fate will be worse than Linny's. Crossing a feng shui master? Your head's gonna swell with a lump. Being rich won't save you when you dodge debts. You're just asking for trouble." I headed back alone to the old house. Night had fallen. The 9-tailed fox master had returned. She wore traditional white robes, resembling a fairy princess, exuding an ethereal aura, hardly looking like a demon. Her presence made my heart flutter. She sat on the sofa, cold and authoritative. "Kneel," she ordered, glaring at me like I'd committed a grave offense. "Ha? What's wrong?" I was confused. "Kneel." Her tone sharpened, cutting off any protest. I dared not argue and obediently dropped to my knees, baffled and dissatisfied inside. Having the 9-tailed fox as a master, yet she refused to explain and just asserted her authority, I was not impressed. "Your second uncle told you not to cause trouble, didn't he?" She glared at me accusingly. "I didn't start it. I was provoked first, I replied. How does she know so much? Was she spying on today's events? Still talking back? Do you understand what you did wrong? Her invisible power shook the room with an intimidating presence. Yes, I know my mistake, I quickly admitted. Arguing with the master is foolish. What's the mistake? The nine-tailed fox's pressure lifted and she stared at me intently. I shouldn't have stirred up trouble. I confessed while still stubborn inside. No matter what Feng did, I wouldn't let him off. My second uncle cautioned me against trouble because he was afraid I'd be exposed. But if I don't cause problems, others picking fights with me isn't my fault. I simply don't fear trouble. No one can change this about me, and I'll take responsibility for the consequences. No, your mistake is not resolving the problem. The nine-tailed fox said sternly, eyes flashing cold light. She meant, I should kill Feng? If you don't eliminate the trouble, it will only grow. Your little bet was child's play, her tone hardened. I was stunned. She wasn't criticizing me for attracting trouble, but for not ending it cleanly. Harsh. But killing someone and getting away with it isn't so simple. Handle it cleanly. Either kill with a borrowed sword. Understand? Use your brain. The world is full of troubles. Only by cutting ties can you live unbothered, her teaching awakened me. Fox spirit, forever the best. I fully understood. When I thought it through, Feng wouldn't let it drop even if I won, he'd definitely retaliate again and again. The troubles would never end. Only by killing him could this feud end. Things had already escalated this far, I had to find a chance.